I'm going to show you how to use paste wax on the toes and heels of some hiking boots to add additional protection for scuffing as you're out walking around, or anything that could be knocking into rocks. This application also applies to dress shoes. I tend to scuff my toes as I'm driving. Some people tend to scuff their heels at work. This is the same principle. What the paste wax offers is additional stiff waxes, which can help make it so that you're scuffing the wax and you're not scuffing the leather. By keeping it to the stiff areas of your leather, like the toes and the heel quarters, those areas are non-flexing areas, and so it makes it so that you can use these stiffer waxes without having it crack and crumble like a candle. Avoid using paste wax on the flexing areas where your foot will naturally flex, but put it on the areas that typically take the brunt of the behavior, which is the toes, the heels. So, paste wax, I'm going to use a brown paste wax. This is our third among 4 browns, the second darkest. It will do a good job of emulating this color. You can sometimes go a shade darker to offer a burnishing or patina effect. When you're using paste wax, you can also offer different colors if you're doing this on dress shoes to offer a lensing or shading effect if you're going for a shine. We're not going for a shine for these. These are my daughter's vintage Italian leather hiking boots that she goes out hiking with. We're not going for a mirror shine on that, but we do want to protect them so the leather lasts a long time. So I'll show you how we use the wax and how to apply it. So this comes in a tin. And now it's much stiffer waxes, so you're not grabbing a cream. I'm going to use my fingertips. You can also use a cloth. Cloth is fine. Use a thin cloth. A thicker cloth will sometimes grab too much product, and too much product, you're not trying to get oils or anything to saturate the leather. You're trying to protect the surface. So you're grabbing too much wax. It's going to be very difficult to spread. So that's why I like to circularly rub around the top surface of the wax to grab the solvent and the waxes, and then I'm going to take very little bit, like a quarter of a pea-sized amount, and I'm going to rub it in circles. Again, I'm circularly rubbing across the top of the wax. That helps grab it without grabbing too much wax. As your wax begins to dry out, it becomes more difficult to grab the solvents. Sometimes you have to scrape off the top layer of the dried out part, but by utilizing both the solvent and the wax, you're getting a good job of being able to spread it while also not caking on layers and layers of wax, because you don't want to cake on tons of layers of wax onto your shoes. It's not healthy for the leather. And it also becomes more challenging to remove later. So as you can see, I'm just circularly rubbing it in until it feels like it's no longer spreading and that the wax has started to solidify on the top. I can already see it start to fog on that top toe cap area, so it tells me that I'm already getting a good amount. I'm doing this a few times. This isn't what I would consider multiple layers. This is just multiple grabs on the same layer to make sure that it's evenly spread. So I would still call this one layer. Okay, so here's an opportunity. I grabbed a little bit too much wax in the crook of my fingertip here, and that wax ended up right there in little clumps. So what's important to do is to not just leave those clumps of wax, but to spread them if they're still spreadable, or to remove them if they're not spreadable. If it's become a sticky, gummy layer, you want to remove that. It doesn't really provide a surface. These are still pretty spreadable. But yeah, you don't want your waxes to gum up. You're using it as protection. You want it to look even, and you want it to spread evenly. I hope that's still on camera. I'm trying to make sure everything I'm doing is on camera. Sometimes grabbing additional solvent from the the wax tin itself helps spread that underlying layer. So it looks like it's spreading. Good. Okay. As you can see, I was running my finger along the side. It's okay to sometimes allow it to do that there. That doesn't flex too much there, and it also offers that additional protection along the side. Sometimes when you're doing a mirror shine, you can connect the heel with the toe by doing additional paste wax just along the outside there. I'm gonna go with the heels and protect, move on to the heels. So again, circularly rubbing in the wax, grabbing everything there to make it spread smoothly and evenly across. Now, every pair is unique. They all respond differently. I try to pay close attention to see how the leather is responding and to also deal with things like issues like when I accidentally grab too much wax in my own fingertip. Because I'm paying attention to filming and not as much onto what I'm doing here. But it's important to just kind of watch, and you can learn, see how your own leather responds. Some leathers don't take this too well. Some leathers, will kind of not absorb it as well. Let's say corrected grain leathers, which have a thinner grain because it's been shaved off and off the top, or it's been imbued with foreign materials. Those don't absorb as well, and so sometimes the upper layers don't take too much, or if you weren't as smooth with your cream layers, it can sometimes be problematic for the top layers like what we're doing right now. So they're still a little bit foggy, but we've got a good first layer. I'll add an extra little bit here on the heels. Realize I'm showing you the underside of the shoe. It's tricky sometimes, to make sure that I'm both facing the leather and that the camera's facing the leather. Okay, move on to the next one. I'm gonna leave it foggy. I'm going to address that in a minute with some brushing, but I'm moving on to the next shoe. Now, I've got a little bit of a mess here. I grabbed a little bit too much, but what I'm gonna do is, I don't wanna just keep digging my fingers in the wax. That's probably from all that. So I'm gonna just try and evenly spread it across. See, this is a learning video for you and me. Now I'm gonna take that bit that got on the top of my finger and put it back here. There we go. Okay, now go back to the right amount. Make sure that this is even. I'm doing it circular patterns. If you're going for a high shine or mirror shine, this is not what I'm doing here. You would use a slightly different technique as you build up what's considered a base. You're building up a base for buffing. You've got to make sure that it's smoothly spread across the grain. You do this sort of crosshatch pattern like this. You move forward, you move cross. And the reason for that is you've got to make sure that the waxes are solid before you proceed with the mirror shine component, because it has to be able to hold a water droplet on the top. And if the water is just penetrating the leather and moving through, then you're not actually buffing any upper wax layers. So that's the point in building the base. But we're not trying to build a base here, we're trying to build a protective layer, which is similar, but we're not going to be so adamant about water retention. This also already has a water resistant cream on it, which offers that nice water barrier. So it's got a few layers of protection here. Looking pretty good. Looking foggy, looking good. That's the waxes and the solvents still spreading across. Okay, I'm going to, well, this one's still a little bit foggy, which tells me that the wax needs to move across. I'm gonna actually use a short horsehair brush, and I'm determining that right now because I think that that will help agitate and smooth the waxes over a little bit better. This is one of those nuances that you learn from just paying attention to the products as they go on. I would typically use a long horsehair brush if it looked perfectly even, but I think with the water resistant cream and then the scuffing and then the paste wax on top, I think I need to make sure that it's perfectly smooth, and it's going to require a little bit more agitation than a long horsehair brush will be able to offer. So I'm going to go with the short horsehair brush. It's my short horsehair brush. You can see a little bit of unevenness in the wax, and that's okay. I'm not going to worry too much about it. This is one quick layer. I'm going to see if I can make it even with this brushing. Maybe let it set for a minute. Let the waxes cool and harden. And then proceed and see if it needs another layer due to some unevenness. And sometimes the unevenness is due to the leather. Sometimes it's due to the underlying layers. Sometimes it's due to the fact that we've used a lot of products. These were cleaned and conditioned yesterday. I just used a water-resistant cream on them before this video. So it's been exposed to a good bit of oils and waxes, and it could just be that it needs some evaporation time or some drying time. So I'm not going to worry too much. And just give it what it needs. The heel seems to be pretty good. I'm filling in the areas that had the scuffing from previous behavior. Okay, move on to this one, which looks like it already has quite a bit of unevenness with the waxes. As you can see, I'm brushing both with the grain and against the grain. Oh, it picked up a hair from the horsehair. Pull that out before proceeding. See, hair from the horsehair. Put that on the cloth so I don't leave it here in the shining area. Okay, it's looking a bit better. Going to the heels. Okay, this is pretty good. You could go out just like this and be fine. I may add an additional layer just for additional protection for her. She's going to do quite a bit of hiking. But I'm not going to add it right now. I'm going to allow this to sit, to dry, cool off, close up the pores a little bit from the exposure to the solvents from the creams and the cleaner conditioner yesterday and now with the paste wax. And then I will come back and reevaluate it probably tomorrow. So that's how you add one layer of paste wax. You would do the exact same thing again tomorrow. And that offers the additional protection so that you're scuffing the wax and not the leather on both the toes and the heels. Keep it off of the flexing areas. because if you use too much on the flexing areas, it will crack and look crumbly as it dries and cools. So this is the Pure Polish brown paste wax on a pair of hiking boots for protecting the toes and heels. Thank you very much.